So what we'll do is we'll make this not quick tonight, but we'll give it its due. We have two great panelists here, and we'll introduce them in a minute. Just as a reminder, feel free to check out the information before you go on your way out, and speak to Josh if you like. But we'll get started. First, what we usually do is introduce the panelists, their thoughts on the movie, and then open it up to you all for some questioning. Yes?
One second before, Josh does have the direct connection with the director.
Oh, okay, right now?
The phone. He's going to call him and see if we can't get a quick update on the project.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
That might help initiate the conversation.
Oh, come on up. That is
we'll
so cool.
We'll see if he picks up or not.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, I thought he could give a little update and then open it up.
Yeah.
If he comes through. Oh boy.
What time is it?
Try one more time. It says I have service down here.
Bob, do you know
does
anything
get a
about
little
an
fuzzy.
update on it?
I do. I Skyped with people in Chile 2 days ago for 90 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I've got
great. So
a pretty good update, I think.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
This
So
will be fun,
this
and
might
then we'll
not
see.
work out anyway.
Good old Skype, right?
Right.
It's fun.
As long as they got solar panels up on their roofs.
Right.
We'll chime
Oh,
in
thanks
maybe
for,
later.
thanks for trying, yeah. That was great. Okay, so Bob, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and...
Sure. I'm Bob King, and I'm a hydroelectric engineer and developer out of Keene. And I first went to Chile in 1990, and I fell in love with southern Chile, and I've been back, I guess, 8 times, and including most recently right along the Rio Baquer. I was standing in the Rio Baquer, and it is just as beautiful as the film depicted, if not much, much more so. In some of my trips to Chile, I was actually bidding on a utility company to buy it, a company called Edelweisen, the one that put up the windmills that they looked at. And this utility company covered all of southern Chile, and yet it was only 13 megawatts, which is tiny. That's like the usage of Concord. And it covered an area the size of New England. And it was all based on small hydro, which was one reason I went there, and they have this tremendous small hydro resource. On the other hand, what they really have more than anything is immense natural beauty and biodiversity, and what the movie depicted so nicely, this very simple subsistence farm culture. And, you know, much of that would be destroyed if these huge dams were built. Also, on some of my trips to Chile, I've met and become friends with some of the people who are behind the movement called Sin Represas, you know, trying to stop the dam, so I can tell you more about that a little later.
Yeah, it was amazing, the parallel to what's going on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really fascinating. Ken?
My perspective will be a little different. I've never been to Chile, so I'll make that confession right off in the beginning here. But I'm the research director for the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I've actually been involved for several decades now with the Hydropower Reform Coalition, which takes a look at how dams are licensed here in the United States. And part of our organization's initiative in that effort, as well as many other organizations, was really not just to simply say no to hydro, but it was also, in the end, focused in on a secondary question of what hydro would be acceptable. They use the terms in this documentary here between renewable and sustainable. There's no energy source out here that does not have environmental impacts. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at solar, wind, hydro. It's the degree of impact that's out there. And because we use power, we always have to accept the fact that there's going to be some degree. And so our organization also was involved in working on the Low Impact Hydro Institute, which I serve on, which was an attempt to ask in the United States which hydro should be certified because its impacts had at least been mitigated or enhanced appropriately for the degree of impact that was going on. I will be proud to say that we've actually certified some of Bob's projects over here. So that's my background and training. I'm also trained as a limnologist, which is a freshwater biologist. So as I watch these films up here, I can pretty much understand a lot of the science.
Yeah, it was very interesting too to understand all the impact as well. Yeah. AMC members in here, raise hands. All right, very good. You also get 10% off when you shop at Bonafide Green Goods as benefit as well. So, for the movie, Bob, you were talking about, and I thought it was interesting, I didn't know it existed, was the certification for low impact hydro?
Right, and Ken just mentioned that, yeah.
Okay, okay. So I know a question that I had was, what does that mean? What are the parameters to get that certification for low
Take that
impact?
one, Ken?
Yeah,
Or, okay,
there's actually 8 different criteria that are used, but I won't go through one by one, but it has everything to do from recreational impacts to cultural impacts, to endangered species, to river flows, to reservoir level impacts, to watershed land protection. And there's a criteria set that goes through, and each project is looked at relative to those and the degree of impact that's there. It also goes back and asks agencies how they feel about as well as the general public about their input before a project is certified.
okay,
And there's 84 projects, and I think the last 2 projects that were certified were Bob's projects, actually,
okay.
here in the United States. But it is a certification process that is used across the United States now. And it was in its embryonic stage for a number of years, but now there's interest both in Europe as well as in Canada in trying to employ this same sort of strategy. The Swiss are actually probably the most advanced right now in Europe in taking a look at this.
Any more thoughts on the movie before we open it up to the audience?
Sure, I thought it was too long myself, but on the other hand, you know, this is the slow pace of southern Chile, and the movie really gets that across. People are very mellow, and it's a really lovely subsistence lifestyle that sort of maybe was what it was like in the United States, particularly in the western United States 100 years ago. You know, and that's one thing that I've always loved about it down there. But I think it did go on a little too long.
Okay. Your thoughts, Rudy?
Well, actually, I worked in the Peace Corps for a number of years, so I do know what it's like to live and
Okay.
work in developing countries. And I think the interesting part, though, is the transition that you saw in some of the folks here, where, from going from candles to light bulbs, etc., was not something that they were fighting. And I think we all, at times, look at third world living and sort of idolize it. But when you see people living in some of those circumstances, you can understand why they want to move up. The question is, how far up that materialistic ladder do you move? And particularly with ever an expanding population that we have in the world, obviously you can't continue to do that forever and have any resources like this left. And that's the real challenge we face as a species and a society.
Could I just add that when I first went to the Aysén region and got involved in bidding on this utility company, there was a Chilean fellow who sort of drew us into this, and his vision was for an Aysén region that, yes, it developed, but not to the sort of energy density of the United States, which consumes a quarter of the world's energy. Rather, he saw it as a bunch of small hydros and windmills and solar panels and people getting light bulbs, but maybe not needing 4 or 5 flat-screen TVs in their houses. And then we met these other friends down there who share a similar vision and also are trying to develop ecotourism and local organic agriculture to sort of round out the sustainable economy that they see for that area,
Right.
as opposed to just adding more and more electricity and more stuff, which is sort of the model that we present to the world.
Okay, very good. Well, we have 2 hydro experts here, so maybe not focus so much on Northern Pass because that's the next month's movie, and expertise, of course, but so if we can pick brains for the expertise of the hydro, that'd be fabulous. So take it away.
Bob, what is the status?
Well, I talked to
right.
Juan Pablo Orrego, who was in the movie, and he's in charge of the Ecosistemas, which is one of the big environmental groups. He's also in charge of the CDP, which is a council. It's sort of an umbrella group of 70 organizations in Chile and around the world, like NRDC is part of it, International Rivers. So he's in charge of all that, and we Skyped for 90 minutes, and he told me that, first of all, it did get approved. Right at the end there, it said, would it get approved in 2011? Well, it did. And of course, now it goes into appeals, and Juan Pablo's group has 4 major law, I don't know if they're called suits down there, what they are, but 4 major cases, 2 of them in the Supreme Court, and 2 others in other government agencies. And that's all very active. It's a large and expensive effort, and it's primarily financed by Doug and Chris Tompkins, who are our friends down there, and Yvonne Chenard from Patagonia, a clothing company, and a few other small American foundations, and some international foundations as well, are pumping a lot of the money into this effort. And of course, it's peanuts compared to the money that Enel, Endesa, and the Colbún company are putting into it. He sort of helped me understand something I'd heard about in Chile, but Chile is run by an oligarchy of several families, and 3 of the top families are involved in this. And there's just so many billions of dollars behind this project that it's completely a Davy and Goliath situation, despite the fact that you have North American millionaires, fighting on the other side. But let's see, I think they'll hear on one of these cases within a month, and he made it sound like they would have appeals going on for years, primarily because the EIA was so poorly done, as the International Rivers guy alluded to. Just huge emissions or omissions, and the transmission line route isn't even figured out yet. And meanwhile, there's a huge and growing student movement in Chile, led by this dynamic young woman, Camila Vallejo, in Santiago, who's got, I think I read 50,000 to 90,000 people out in the streets last May, protesting generally about student issues and education, but also sin represas. They took up the dam movement, and they're protesting against that too. So,
Excellent.
such that polls are now indicating, I think 74% of Chileans are against this.
Oh,
Wow.
good, so there's a little hope still.
Juan Pablo Orrego told me, he's not cynical or anything, but it's not like he's hopeful,
Okay.
because he sees them fighting these many billionaires.
Yeah,
But, they've still got a lot of arrows in the quiver.
okay. Anything else before we open it up to the audience? Audience?
Was this put to a popular vote? The
No.
people approved this, or
No,
who
no sort of
approved it, I guess,
plebiscite.
is my question.
The Chilean people have been polled a few times, and the poll numbers are slowly going up in opposition, but there's been no sort of plebiscite or something like
Okay.
that.
So who did pass it? Is this strictly government?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the government, the president is this guy, Sebastián Piñera, who's a billionaire, and his brother-in-law is one of the directors of Hydroaicén, and, it's just, this is how, Chile is, it's like the United States, but much worse, it's the 0.001% running the whole show down there.
Is it still owned by Spain then too?
No, Endesa, which was the Spanish utility
Right.
that got all the water rights for free of all these amazing huge rivers, thanks to Pinochet. Endesa was bought out by Enel, this Italian company. So it's 51% Italian and 49% Chilean now, this Hydroaicén.
Interesting.
I'd point out here in New Hampshire that almost all of your major hydro now is owned by Canadian. Your largest wind farm is owned by Canadian.
Sure.
This is not unusual to see big companies from one country essentially possessing
Right.
resources in another. And it used to be that the U.S. used to possess it in a lot of other countries, but I would say in the last decade or two, we've seen a real transition where the monopoly has flipped over.
Sure.
So it's sort of like foreign oil and foreign hydro?
But your major hydro on the Connecticut, your major hydro on the Androscoggin, the largest wind farm that we have, actually the two, one is Spanish, one is Canadian.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, Enel, this Italian firm that might destroy southern Patagonia, also owns a bunch of small hydro here in New Hampshire.
Really? Okay.
So,
So
Well,
how,
the Leinster wind farm is Spaniard.
it's not Enel though, yeah.
No, it's the
I'm curious, how many dams are there in New Hampshire?
Oh, thousands.
Thousands, yeah.
Thousands?
Yes, not generating hydro, but as far as dams, thousands.
Oh, okay. How about ones generating hydro? From little to big?
I used to know that number, but
Yeah.
it's
Roughly.
several hundred.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, we started off
Does
as,
anybody know?
yeah, it was hydromechanical first,
Okay.
and then a lot of those became hydroelectric as you transitioned. But the old Amoskeag Mill and so on and so forth were all hydromechanical in the
That
beginning.
many though?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, aren't a lot of dams going to be broken down though and revert to the natural way of a river?
There is a major effort, American Rivers is actually in the lead in the United States on that right now. And I would label it the low-hanging fruit. These are typically dams that are not going to be productive to turn back over to hydro. They become a risk because nobody's willing to maintain them. There's a risk that they're going to bust and go. There are a few dams that were hydro generating. Probably the most exemplary model actually was on the Kennebec River, which was the Edwards Dam. And that was the first major dam that was pulled in the United States to restore major fisheries. And that was a headwater dam, but only generated, I think it was like 2 megawatts, if I recall correctly, on Kennebec. And yet it was down near the mouth of the ocean, and it inhibited all the fisheries, the anadromous fisheries, from moving up. And when they removed that dam, the fisheries came back. But that was a classic case where the value of the fisheries far exceeded the 2 megawatts that were being generated.
Tom, you had a question?
On that project in Chile, it was 2,200 miles of transmission lines.
About 2,200 kilometers, about 1,500 miles,
kilometers,
yeah.
I'm sorry. What would the percentage of loss be in that line?
Oh,
How much
I don't know,
energy would be lost between the
probably
dam
8%,
point? I'm sorry,
8%.
8%?
Is
something
that
like that.
DC?
That's high voltage DC.
That's
Yeah,
what
I
they said in
realize
DC.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So 8% over the whole 2,000 kilometers?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just the beginning of the story. The thing you have to know about southern Chile, and I've flown over it a bunch, it's just incredibly mountainous terrain. So, you know, it makes the White Mountains look like little anthills. It's just, and, you know, half these mountains are covered with glaciers.
And they're running lines through that?
Well, that's the incredible thing, is they're trying to push a line through this area. And, I mean, it's for example, our friends at Tompkins own about a 700,000 acre park that they're going to give to the government of Chile as a national park. And it's extremely mountainous, it's all granite, and these guys are going to push the line right through this park, which had our friends very upset, of course. And they're about to, you know, that was about to become the official route, and then Volcan Chaitan blew up, you know, right where the line was going to go. And now, so now they rerouted it offshore. It's going to go underwater for that stretch of about 30 miles where it was going to go over this national park to be and this active volcano. And so now people say, how many other active volcanoes are out there that we don't know about?
Interesting.
So it's hard to imagine the line actually getting built, and yet,
Yeah.
you know, they're now talking about doing it for something like $6 billion. The price is up to $10 billion, by the way. So
I was
it's the-
gonna add-
Cost effective. Yeah, you had a,
Thanks. Bob, do you know if they've followed they gave the example of Brazilian projects where they sought
split the
permits,
EIA.
yeah,
Yeah.
they segmented the projects. Have
Yeah.
they done that here? Have
Oh,
they-
totally. Juan Pablo told me that, yeah. And his group is trying to get them to pull them back together. But again, the whole underlying problem is that the oligarchy controls the government, and so a lot of it's window dressing. It's, you know. He told me that ultimately, if they can't get the Chilean government to behave, they're going to take it to the International Court for Human Rights in Washington on development issues, because they will claim that it's destroying the development potential of the Aysén region, which is interesting, because a lot of people say, oh, we were going to help them develop, but it's destroying, you know, their ecotourism potential, and, you know, their you know, what they have now, basically. So that'll all be gone.
I would point out that we do the same thing here. We segregate the hydro or the energy source from transmission lines normally in the environmental review processes. We try to catch up with the cumulative impacts, but it's usually a minor piece of the whole effort.
Jonathan, do you want to?
I guess my question was, it sounds like the transmission lines isn't really in anywhere ready to go in any stage, but the hydro has more been studied and is the one being focused on right now. Are they actually considering like developing the hydro plant and putting in the dam
I don't think they
without
do
even
that.
having the transmission lines already set up?
Even
or?
though the hydros are only half the cost at, you know, $3 billion of
Right.
the 6 or 7 million for the lines, they
It would
wouldn't-
seem like they'd have to put the transmission lines in.
Well, I'm
first
sure
to
they'd like
some
to do it all
degree.
concurrently.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, it's all very active. They've got the Chinese bidding on the transmission line now. The Canadians are bidding on it. You know, it's all. They're going to have to build a huge seaport, which is being planned. You know, it's all.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's all in the works, but you know, these guys are fighting it tooth and nail.
Is there any
So what-
consideration given to segmenting the project? There were two basic river basins. One
Right.
was the Baker and one was,
Pascua.
so was it ever considered, gee, let's do this incrementally? And let's do the Baker first,
Well-
and then let's see how it works out, and then,
Not to my knowledge, partly because to justify a $7 billion or $6 billion transmission line, I suspect that they need to tell themselves they're really going to build all 5 plants to get all 2750 megawatts. But it reminds me of another aspect of this, which is that once that line is built, even though it's DC and you have to go back to AC to tap into it, it crosses about 8 other magnificent free-flowing wild rivers in southern Patagonia. So the Futulefu, the Cisnes, the Ibañez, all these are up on the chopping block next. So
Yeah, sounds familiar.
it's you know, I for one love hydropower. I love small hydro. I like big dams too, but there's a balance, and we've, you know, in the International Rivers guy reminds us that we have an awful lot of big dams. Maybe it's time to start preserving what we have left.
Right.
And southern Patagonia is just such a gem. It's just wild, wild country.
Very wonderful. Anybody else?
I have a question about, is there any policy that tries to help have some kind of bidding between alternative energy sources? So if one big corporation comes in wanting to do a big hydro project, who's there to try to balance that out with, you know, other wind power or
Right, and in the
solar?
United States, in some states, you know, some states have least cost planning, and you actually have to have everybody bid their energy source and see what's the least cost. But I don't believe that Chile has that, and again, you know, the oligarchy and so forth, they've sort of chosen these as the projects they want to do. And Juan Pablo told me that really the reason Endesa and Enel are so focused on this is that they, you know, they were given these water rights for free for 2,750 megawatts. You know, they want to use them. And my wife said, these guys are all billionaires already. Why do they need to make more money? But, you know, for whatever reasons, they got these free water rights and they want to use them. They want to capitalize on them.
What intrigued me, though, the scientists made an argument that it isn't even necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, you know, is just amazing. I've been there as well, and it's just so dry and so barren. There's not even much biodiversity because it's bone dry. It's just all rock.
But just
And
the current efficiency of products
efficiency
going
as well.
on
Absolutely.
negates the
Yeah.
need for this dam.
But the thing they didn't really mention is that a lot of this energy is actually slated not for Santiago, but for the mines, many of which are in the Atacama Desert, even further north.
Okay.
And so, you know, granted, do we even need more mines? Well, the Chinese are getting all their copper from Chile, so, you know, the Lixig family that owns all the mining in Chile, you know, really wants to sell more copper to China, and they need energy for their $81 billion mining expansion project, and they see it coming from Patagonia. Why can't they supply it from solar thermal in the desert, you know, which is right next to the mines?
Or geothermal.
Or geothermal, yeah, but all that's further south. But the mines are literally on the edge of the desert, the big copper mines.
Crazy. One more.
I thought you'd mentioned that there were some American corporations earlier on in your presentation. There were quite a few American corporations contributing money, and I didn't understand if it was in favor of supporting the
No, I
land.
said foundations.
Or
Foundations.
in opposition to, or in
Correct.
support of?
Opposition to the dams.
Opposition to.
Yeah. Yeah, primarily Patagonia and Whedon Foundation and a few others. But they're impoverished, and when I talked to Juan Pablo, I said, Juan Pablo, what can I tell these people they can do to help you, you know,
Right.
12,000 miles away in Chile? And he said, you know, you can support NRDC, which is working hard on this. He said, visit Chile and help protest.
They must have a Facebook page, right?
Yeah. And he's, you know, you can make contributions to Patagonia Sin Represas, which has a great website. You can write letters to, you know, the State Department. There are all kinds of things one could do.
Okay, good. One last question.
Okay. The film had highlighted the mayor at the headwaters that
Yes,
created some kind
Tortel.
of
Wasn't he interesting?
community-based CSA kind of small hydro
Yeah.
that provided free electricity to the village,
Yeah.
and they were trying to expand that. So is that the only one in Chile, or did they have water rights?
No, not at all. I
Why
visited a
did
whole
they-
bunch of those when I was down there. And when he said that, I thought, did I visit that site? And I didn't. I visited the one in the next town over. But
So what's the percentage of the CSA type?
well, his is pretty unusual because this utility that I was working on called Edelaisen actually runs the hydros, all tiny little hydros, and sells the power to most of the people in that region. But Tortel, his little community, was so isolated that I think it was a little satellite utility of its own. So that's pretty unusual. But Edelaisen isn't that much different. I mean, it's not that much bigger. Again, it was only 13 megawatts when I was down there. That's tiny.
So if you look at the incentives actually for quote renewables here, or even in the United States, most of them are aimed at the big manufacturers of power. They're not aimed, you know, it's the tokens that are going out to the smaller projects and particularly to the homeowner. And that's part of that conflict we even have here in the United States between, are we going to favor big centralized systems, or are you going to favor incentives that go more to a decentralized system. And currently, most of our incentives are very similar to what you see here, is to the big centralized systems.
Very good. Well, we'll call it a night. However, I'm sure Bob and Ken will stick around a little bit.
Sure.
That's always nice that they can entertain, personal questions. And certainly check out the tables outside on your way out. Feel free to sign up for emails to Josh's program, Green Concord, to find out about more movies. But the next movie is March 9th through the 12th, I think, and Monday night also will be the panel discussion. So, and that is Seeking the Current, so that brings it at least in our continent. So, but it is about is it Hydro-Quebec, or the last damming of the river in
Right,
Quebec?
so there's a lot of correlations between what's happening in Chile and in Quebec, and much similar to those associations, our community here in Hampshire is being affected in similar ways, and so we're going to continue that discussion and have it a little more locally based next month, so we hope to have you all back for that.
Yep, so spread the word in case you know any people who are interested, especially in Northern Pass, anybody from up north or anything. And thank you sponsoring the Conservation Law Foundation for that as well. So, thank you very much for coming.